Alright guys, we have a 91 EZGO Marathon. We got a 2-cylinder 4-stroke motor in this one here, which is a really nice cart. This cart is actually in really nice shape. But what we're doing on this one here is we're having intermittent start issues. You can hear the motor every once in a while when we click on the pedal. And now it's going to not do it for me, but we have an intermittent start nonetheless. But when you step on the pedal, it's not going to do it for me now. It's going to make a flippin' liar out of me. But when you step on the pedal, what'll happen is the engine just won't crank, but you'll hear the solenoid click. So it could be one of two things. We could have bad brushes in the starter generator, or we're going to have a bad solenoid. Usually the brushes, when they start to wear out, the starter generator sometimes will crank slower than it should, but this one sounds really strong. There we go. Okay, so now I'll show you how we figure this out. Alright, so here's our solenoid right here. This isn't going to work if the engine cranks over, so we got to hope that the engine doesn't crank over at all. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to be basically watching for, I don't know if I'm going to be able to show you my meter, but I'm going to be watching for voltage on the starter generator side of this solenoid, okay? So basically, alright, so I got 12.7 volts. Here's the battery side. It's not the cleanest connection, but 12.7. Okay, now we're getting 0. Alright, so now the solenoid is activated. I'm getting millivolts. I don't know if you can see the meter kind of like flipping out there, but here, let's put this on volt. Okay, so there we go. Now we can see. Alright, I have to change my range because it's, let's see here. Okay. So now you can see there's 1146, 0. And now that I've activated the solenoid again, you can see now that it's 0 again. Okay, so now that we've seen we have no voltage on the secondary side or the starter generator side of this solenoid. Now we do. You can see this engine starts right up. And now we don't. So you can see that that tells us that this solenoid is bad. And that's how we determine if the solenoid is bad. Now, if we had no engine cranking over at all and we'd roll the engine over manually on the clutch and then it would start, that would tell me that the brushes in the starter generator are getting a little weak and it's time to change them. But because we have no voltage going to the starter generator from this side of the solenoid, that's how we've determined that the solenoid is bad. So we're going to change this solenoid out. Alright, well that totally blows. I don't have that solenoid in stock. Alright, so while we're waiting for that solenoid to come in, we do have to do a service on this thing. It looks like it's... oh, it's been a while. It's been a while. This is the old... this looks like the original filter. This is definitely the old style filter. See, it's still in good shape, but we can put in a newer filter that'll breathe a little bit better and it won't be so constricted. But this filter is technically not bad. It is a little dirty, but it's not... yeah, it's not terrible. I've seen them a lot worse, but she did want to put a new air filter in it and for fuel filter and, you know, go and service everything. So let's go ahead and get the oil change and everything while we wait for this filter or the solenoid to come in. All right, so here's a new air filter here. Sometimes these air boxes won't close properly if you're not seating them correctly, and that could be an issue. I've been trying to convince this customer to keep this cart for as long as possible because, one, it's in really nice shape. It's been painted at some point in its life. There's no rust. Why do people insist on using these fuel filters? These smooth shank ones work just fine, and as long as you put the clamp back on, you're not going to have any problems with it. Stop using this crap, because now I have to cut this filter off. I know the lighting is really bad. I don't have any way to hang a light on this cart because there's no top. It's a little bit carboned up. It tells me it's running just a little bit rich. Yeah, see, that one's carboned up too. Looks like it's been a while since these have been changed. And I only use NGK spark plugs. I don't use Champion. I don't use Autolite. I don't use generic. They're a very trusted brand, so it's silly to not. And always want to make sure you squish that washer, but you don't want to go too much because you will strip out that head, and then you'll be in trouble. Okay, so down inside here, this is going to be really tough to show you this. There's a jam nut on the bottom, which you have to loosen. This isn't the same on all of them. All the EZGOs of this generation, they kind of switch this up at some point. But you loosen the top nut, and then you loosen the bottom nut, because you need to back the bottom nut off, because when you tighten the top nut, it's basically like a pinch nut. And it's in a terrible location. Wonder if I can get the... Nope, can't get the box end on there. This is where like a crow's foot wrench would come in handy, or something like this. Because when you tighten the top nut here, you're basically going to be pushing the rod down to tighten the generator up. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to back it down quite a bit. You don't have to go too far. I mean, this belt isn't really super loose, but we're going to snug it up real good. Okay, that's getting better already. And it doesn't take that many turns. Usually 1.5 full, or 1.5 revolutions of this nut will get you where you need to be as far as the tension on the belt. Sometimes you got to go a little more like this one, because this one is just really loose, and we're going to keep it so it's tight. There we go. Now I'll tighten up our lower nut here. I'll tighten the top one up because it's just that much easier. Okay, there we go. So now the only thing we have left to do is drop the oil. Ooh, yep, that's a bit milky. Alright, so one thing I like to do before dumping oil in or even removing this cap is, especially when it's dirty like this, try to remove as much of this dirt as you can, even if it's just in this general area, because you don't really want that going down in your motor. Certainly looked like it hasn't been changed in quite a while. You don't want to overfill these motors, and you want to be at least on the high side of the full mark. So that's actually, I don't think you're going to be able to see that, but that is spot on. I typically would wash the engine down real quick with the garden hose. a cool engine, not a hot engine, just to get some of that crap off around the dipstick and around the filled port here. Okay, so the service is complete. Well, the oil change and filter service is complete. That's all she wanted. We just have to wait for the solenoid to come in. Once that comes in, we can continue this video and get the solenoid changed out, and then this card will be good to go. I had to order the solenoid. Didn't have one. I got one now. It's a White Rogers. Comes with documentation. But we'll get this installed now and we'll be good to go. Alright, so before doing any of this work, I've already gone ahead and disconnected the battery, negative terminal. Start getting this crap out of the way here. Drop the hardware because it doesn't matter. And you have your battery cable. Looks like lights and the system power. And then so we know where everything is, we're going to loosely install all this stuff ahead of time. Because these things have so much going on here with these solenoids. Come on. Oh, that's the wrong nut. Okay, so we just install these loose, just so when we're taking stuff apart, it's not a big ordeal. Now I did have one wire pull off here, this blue one. This goes to that terminal, so we will have to tighten that up. Let's get these large terminals off first. Okay. Start a generator side and that one. So it goes down to the voltage regulator, and then you have these. See, I like these types of connections where you have the stud to spade connector. It does make it a bit easier to make sure everything has a proper connection. Or if you need to unplug and plug something in, it's much nicer to be able to do that. So we're going to have to bend these tabs back just a little. This connection here is not that strong, so I'm going to have to adjust that. And this type of thing too, if you're unsure, take a picture. Just take a picture. Or you could also take all the wires you unplugged from the same connections and zip tie them. That's typically what a lot of people will do. You can zip tie them, take a picture, whatever floats your boat. So we'll put 1, 2, and 3. All right, so that's the solenoid disconnected. 7/16 or 11 millimeter. These you do have to completely remove. Hang on to this hardware because you'll need it to remount the solenoid. leave that for the customer. Okay. Install that. Okay. It's nice with the new solenoids. They have a slot on one side, so you only have to remove basically one nut. I'm dropping stuff everywhere, so at least I know I'm doing it right. Alright, so we'll work our way this way here. Get snug, and then I'll put another wrench on that back nut there so we don't rotate this. You want to hold back while you're tightening. There. Good and tight. Little lock washer and the nut. Now I just have to get my ground wire that I dropped. We'll install our ground and then our spade adapter. Lock washer and then our nut. Attempt to get this started. Okay. Now I have to crack this one loose so I can get this in here. They don't give you a lot of wiggle room here to get these tools in. Okay. Alright, there's that, there's that, there's that. These little things are on. There's that. There's that. There's the last nut. This is one of those tasks that can be difficult with gloves on. It's not as critical that these are super tight. You just don't want them loose. Okay. There. I have to get another wrench to hold back on those. Now all I have to do just for my sanity is just tighten up these spade connectors so I know they won't come loose, and we'll be good. And that's just a matter of squeezing them with a pliers to give them a little extra grip. Oh, that's way better. You know, over the years, hot, cold, vibrations, this stuff just loosens up. Just the nature of the beast. And I'm not squeezing really hard on these. I'm just trying to tighten up these connections so they bite into the metal a little better. Okay. There we go. Nice strong connections. That one's good. I don't need to touch that one. Grounded. Now we can hook our negative terminal back up here on the battery. Make sure all these connections are tight, and they are. Put it in neutral. key on. Okay, that's a result. Part fires right up. So, alright guys, that closes up this one. This one is complete, and we're going to get it loaded and back to the customer. I want to thank you for watching. I really do appreciate it, as always. Be sure to check the video's description to links to products I use every single day to bring you these videos and to run my business. Be sure to check the links to my social media pages and website. If you have any questions about this particular project or any other project, please leave a comment in the comment section down below this video. And as always, thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next video.